Mav's Coffee Clarity with Denise is brought to you in partnership with Drive Media and Consulting and their premier sponsors. Subscribe on your favorite streaming platforms and share. If you just found us, welcome. And if you're a regular, welcome back. Denise DiGrigoli has spent her life in the creative industries as an entrepreneur, helping people transform their visions into thriving businesses, working with individuals and teams to find their purpose and live their life vibrantly. On her pod, Denise delivers business intel and life hacks with wit and wisdom in short shots like a strong espresso with a solid sense of humor. Enjoy this episode of Mav's Coffee Clarity, and here's Mav.
That's right, my friends. You are on Mav's Coffee Clarity with Denise. Every week, we're spilling the beans on business intel and life hacks designed to move you forward with wit, wisdom, and clarity. I bring on some incredible navigators, mavericks in their own right. And today is no different, my friends. You know, somebody that knows humor is one thing, but somebody that knows not just entertainment, that's their superpower. And I want to introduce you to a really spectacular guy, an award-winning comedian, consultant, and believe it or not, a tongue. It's the end of the day. Where's the coffee? A former Ivy League rowing coach. Just put those two together, my friends, who blends the discipline of elite sports with the unpredictability of stand-up, but knows how to make people connect. From, yes, the Team USA to competing World Rowing Championships, and I know you can't do that. I'm sorry, I know I can't do that, but he did. And then he was on HBO, NBC, Fox, Kevin Hart's LOL Network, Richie's Master, The Art of Navigating High Pressure Moments with a Punchline. Welcome to the show, Richie Redding. Thank you.
Wow, man, I do not know if I can live up to all that. How you doing?
I am so glad you're on the show. Now,
Thank you. I'm impressive on paper.
you're impressive on paper. No,
Yeah.
I have to say, when I saw you at Gotham, I thought you were spectacular. And that wasn't because I was drinking with my college buddies in our alumni show
It helps.
reunion. I thought you were spectacular, real, relevant. But then I did have to stalk you on LinkedIn. And I said, this
Uh-huh.
guy is teaching corporate comedy for healing, introspection, just moving forward. And I thought that's a unique mix. So then yeah,
Yeah.
I reached out and I said, hey, we need some of that Maverick energy on the show.
Thank you
So
so much. Yeah.
welcome to the show. I want to hear about the Ivy League rowing first because I'm
Uh,
enamored by the fact I'm so short.
uh-huh.
It's like being a stewardess. I couldn't be. So tell me about that.
Yeah. Well, also there's a pro tip mixed in here for that was hidden in your intro that if anybody wants to get a professional comedian to do something, then start off with, I just saw you, you're so funny, blank, blank, blank. Whatever's coming next, you have a very good shot at a yes. Um, and yeah, so I my
You
my
are so
former
funny.
life. Thank you. Yeah, I know. I really do appreciate it. Yeah, my former life, I was a coxswain, which is the little guy that steers rowing boats. So I am
Are you in
also
the
not
back
near.
or the front?
It depends on. It's all perspective, right?
Oh, okay.
Yeah, in an eight-man boat, you would be in the back or the stern of the boat. Yeah, so I was 78 pounds my freshman year in high school.
What?
Yeah, I was a tiny kid,
I don't think
and
I don't even remember that weight for myself, but okay. So the
yeah,
coxswain is 78 pounds?
I was well. I mean, so for international competitions, you have to be 110 pounds for juniors, and for senior competitions, you have to be 125 and above.
Okay.
But in high school, it was like this kid's a spider. Let's get him. Um, Yeah, and like a lot of the life lessons that I learned very early on
Mm.
were it came from that like I was extremely fortunate to have a pedigree of amazing coaches that really took interest in me, and I had some legendary coaches, let's put it that way.
For
And
rowing or for
for
comedy or both?
for rowing. There's
Okay.
no such, yeah. Comedy, it's every man for himself, or woman. But
True.
no, my life was affected by great leadership from that took very little effort on that person's part,
Really?
but completely changed the trajectory of my life. And that's one of the things that I really try to impart in my workshops is that, like, real empathetic leadership doesn't have to be like every day waking up and be like, how can I serve those around me? So much
Mm.
as it can, so much as it can just be one sentence that makes somebody not quit that day, right?
That's your maverick wisdom, my friend. So, did you know you were going to be a comedian? Like, how did these two worlds come together? And I'm just curious,
Yeah,
where did you grow up?
I grew up in South Jersey,
Olivia, my
and
assistant, is from South Jersey.
oh,
All you,
whereabouts?
all you beachgoers. I don't know. Olivia, where are you from? Marlboro, she said very diplomatically.
Okay, I'm much further south. I'm close to Atlantic City,
Okay.
but yeah, so honestly, I always wanted to do stand up since I was a little kid. I was always fascinated with it.
Mm.
And like when I was sick, I would get a bunch of Carlin and Eddie Murphy VHS tapes.
Yep.
Um, but yeah, my career kind of started in the boat because there's a microphone, there's a little microphone, and there's three speakers throughout the boat. So I had a captive audience of
Yeah,
eight
they weren't
guys
getting out.
for yeah, 8 guys for a couple hours a day. And the thing that was difficult and that I had to learn pretty early, that it was very easy to be really funny, but then it was hard to get them back on track. So
Mm.
it's like so that, like, and that's a thing that I hear from leaders a lot, that it's like they're afraid that if they start being fun, then they have to be the fun police, right? So it's like
Okay. Yeah.
it's finding that balance. But um for me, humor really helped to cut the intensity of, because it was like I can make guys crying mad or like shaking mad or get them to relax within, a few minutes of each other.
Yeah, a few seconds of a few words. So you
Hmm.
did you go to college and row there? Tell me the rowing career versus the comedy career.
Yeah, I went to University of Pennsylvania, only because I was recruited as a coxswain. They didn't want me for my grades. Let's put it that way. Um, and I guess for like, and I stuck around, and I still did a lot of I did a lot of rowing camps and stuff like that. That I was like, trying out for the national team and stuff like that.
Mm.
And then I started stand up like 2 years out of college, and when when my job blew up because I didn't care about it at all, I went back to my college coach and told him what I wanted to do, and he was like, "Well, how about you come coach with me?" And it was like, "Really?" So for the first 3 or 4 years that I was a comic, I was also the assistant heavyweight coach at UPenn.
Congratulations. What a trajectory. Okay, so now you start off and are you like doing the 5 minute stand-ups here, there, and everywhere, just trying to make it, or did you have an in?
No, there was no in whatsoever.
No in.
And it's just figuring it out. And the scene was so small back then in Philly. I was just in Philly at the time. And so it's like 5 minutes a week for the first few months, right? And then
Oh,
then
for
you get
sure.
invited, and then you get invited to do like a Thursday and maybe a Sunday. So just the reps were so low. But also I would be remiss if I didn't say that my stand-up career was big time sidetracked by my alcoholism and crippling drug addiction, which really ramped up at the time. And I'm very open about that. I've been sober for a long time now, but
No, I read about
uh,
that in a recent post. That's also why I was so, a lot of people they share that, but they don't share that that's part of their success, right?
mhm.
And so I want to hear about that for sure because I have some very close friends and close family members that haven't drank in years, and they talk about the transformational value. And I think there's a lot of pressure when you're in any part of life, whether you're a performer or not, right? If you got the gene and you twist the gene on, the gene is on. So you now
Yeah.
you're a stand-up comic and you're drinking heavily and doing drugs. Is that what's happening?
Yeah, that's a pretty good summation of it.
Yeah.
What with the occasional rowing practice mixed in there. Um, I, I don't mention that I was a drug addict, coach. Uh,
Well, don't worry, I'm not telling a soul. I promise you.
yeah, um, yeah. So
But
it
that's
was this.
I want to know this
It,
about you. Was that something you happened on, or was that in your family legacy? Like, how'd that happen?
it's a little bit in the family. I had an uncle and a grandfather that definitely qualified. My parents don't really drink, maybe because of that. But they always told me from the time I was a kid that I had to be careful, and I was like, "Yeah, what do you know?"
Yeah.
Um, but then also, it's
Oh,
like starting stand up is it creates like a 6 day weekend kind of, right? And there's
oh, for
like
sure.
there's either a reason to celebrate or a reason to be miserable if your set went well or badly, depending, right? Um, and I mean, and on top of it, I was just pretty immature and kind of couldn't say no, and there was some unaddressed things that that bubble to the surface, and
So were you a practicing comic and, also, fighting this tide, or did you do one or the other first? Like, were you drinking and standing up?
I wouldn't say I was fighting it.
Okay.
Uh,
So how did you decide you
yeah.
wanted to get out of it? Like, what did you do?
Um, well, it was a series of things where it was like kind of a few years went by that I was stuck and not living up to any kind of potential, and the it was in my head it was nothing but bad luck and assholes,
Yeah.
but then uh yeah it, and I don't know what happened, that I woke up one day. I was at an ex-girlfriend's house, and
Was she ex at the time or she's ex now?
she was ex at the time, and
Oh,
very much ex now,
okay.
and I was miles away from where I was drinking, and I decided that I was like really scared by having no idea where I was, and I decided I was going to stop drinking for 5 days,
Hmm.
and that first day was so hard that I decided that I had to try to get some help, and then it was just um, it was a conspiracy of strangers that perfectly
Serendipitous, you
delivered.
mean?
Yeah,
Serendipitous. Yeah.
well, but
Universe was working.
it was strangers conspiring to help me get better.
Isn't that
And
great?
yeah, and I just kind of let go and took a lot of advice, and it was just it was a lot of random acts of kindness that helped me to get sober, and I try to pay
That's
that
a
forward
MAV
now.
special. I so believe in serendipitous acts and just allowing, inviting, and releasing. So how did you get over to um because I did my homework on you and I know you filled out the
Uh-huh.
form, but I still did my homework, my friend.
Okay, I
You
like a
get
good
over.
stalking.
Yeah, I like to stalk.
Yeah,
I don't
flattered.
call it stalking. I call it sharing and celebrating. But okay. HBO, NBC,
Mhm.
Kevin Hart, like how did you get there? Because really that's I mean, people make that's no lightweight feat. That's like
Yeah. It all started once I got sober. It all started
wow,
when I
so it started
was
clicking.
yeah, I stopped drinking for a month, and I won a contest that sent me out to Vegas,
Ah,
and I won that, and that got me on HBO for a couple of minutes, and it was, just it just kind of builds on itself, but there's a lot of start and stop, and there's a lot of unpredictability with it. But especially being sober, it's like my job is to stay out of the results, and I just have to show up, right?
yeah.
And my superpower has been
Yeah, what is your Maverick?
showing. Well, I mean, one of them is just showing up,
That's
right?
your Maverick.
Like,
Yeah, hey, that's a Maverick soup. What's another one? Then
yeah.
one of them. You must have more.
Well, I'll think of it as we go. But you asked me, one of the things that you had asked was, what's a great piece of advice that I got?
Yeah, see,
And
I'm not going to firebomb you with the questions, but I'm glad you read my form.
yeah, so Kevin Hart, name drop.
Yeah,
Sorry,
name drop.
Jay-Z told me to stop doing that. Um, that
Who can about him? Go ahead. We can do that here.
Kevin Hart told a group of young comics in Philly when I was kind of starting out, because he was just starting to get famous at that point, and he said the most important thing you can do for your own career is to show up on time and be cool. And
Mm, that's a tall order. Be cool. What does that mean?
yeah, well, I mean, it's amazing how many people with a hell of a lot of potential and that are really good at whatever it is they do flub either one of those things, that of like, and I have that comparison, especially with athletes that were
Mm,
amazing athletes and not cool, and no, and nobody wants to follow that person,
right.
right?
Okay. I think we understand it better now. Yeah. That's a very enlightening way to look at it. Yeah. Flub. Yeah. Mm. Okay. So then what happened?
Um, for
You're
what?
sober and you're
Yeah, just
opening these
progressing.
stores now. And
Oh, yeah. So like I had moved home to try to get sober,
home with your
and
parents.
yeah, back with my parents, which
How was that
was
adventure?
the best thing that I ever did.
Oh, good. I'm
And
gonna make sure my daughter listens to this episode.
yeah, if your daughter has been smoking crack, yeah, I'm kidding. I wasn't doing that. But no, it was one of those many times where it was like it kind of accepting defeat turned into a victory, because like I felt like a loser when I moved home, but because I was like 27 or something, and then in reality what happened was that I reconnected with what I really find is funny,
What is
and
that?
it's just being myself, right?
Mm,
And that's the hardest thing to do when people are watching, is to be yourself,
you're
right?
not kidding.
And
Yeah.
yeah, and that's why I really did truly take it as a compliment when you said that when you saw me, I was really authentic, and that's what I want it to be, right? Like
No,
I
I'm
just,
not even, listen, I'm not even kidding you. Because we saw three or four comics that night, and I was with friends I hadn't seen in 20 years. And,
mhm,
and then I thought, well, this guy is pretty cool. He's actually, you referenced some things that reminded me of my youth and my life and just the way you presented yourself. And so I took a few comedy classes during the pandemic and I had a couple roundabouts on the comic strip. So I know how hard it is to write comedy. And
mhm,
I know how hard it is just to show up and be yourself, i.e., that's why I prefer to be over here instead of on stage, right?
yeah,
It's a tough job. It's a great job when it goes good, like you said, but the other times it can put you in the fetal position. You're like, holy crap, what is happening? So
right.
you're in really high performing arenas. Let's face it, rowing at an Ivy League and stand up. I don't care. This is high pressure, high stakes. You've got to have some salt behind you. So you go home now, you're 27. Does your rowing, that sophistication, and what you've learned about being on the streets as a comic come together and propel you? Or like what helps you grow other than the humility of moving home at 27?
Yeah, I mean, that background has definitely helped me to believe in myself for
Okay.
sure, and knowing that I have a work ethic, that like I know hard work's not going to kill me, right? But no, it was reconnecting with my family, who it was a bit of a prodigal son situation, but like, I had developed this crutch of being drunk or high on stage, thinking that that's what would make me funny,
I
right?
see.
And from the time I was a kid, that was kind of the thing, that it was like the reason I loved when I first started drinking was because I was this tiny kid that didn't get attention, and then I would loosen up. I'd be the life of the party. I'd be fun. I'd be funny. But what I was really doing was just kind of being myself, right? But the drunk version of it. And then when I moved home, it was like, well, I don't need to be drunk to make my mom laugh at 9 in the morning, right?
Okay.
And I don't need to be high to make my niece giggle. So it it was a really important thing in old Stella getting her groove back
Mhm.
when I went home and just remembered the foundational humor that I was raised with.
So you're still doing a lot of stand up now, but I really want to move to
Hmm.
Funnier Than You Are, which, first of all, I love. I love the name.
Thank you.
Funnier Than You Are is so friggin' funny. I
Yeah.
can see myself out somewhere. Yeah, no, I'm funnier than you are. But
Uh-huh.
I what also enamored me about your LinkedIn when I looked at it is like that's a hard gig, right?
Mhm.
Convincing people that they need humor in their lives to run their businesses and their teams better. I spent a lot
Mhm.
of time myself in strategic communication, helping sales teams develop communication skills so they can close those bazillion-dollar RFPs and do it with authentic. And I do use my humor when I'm out there. And sometimes it's that delicate balance, right? Because people don't
Mhm.
understand it. And if they don't have it themselves in their ballywick, they get afraid. Once they get afraid, they put the door up. So tell me about
Right.
Funnier Than You Are. Like how do you break in? And don't
Yeah. So,
go ahead.
and don't what?
I was saying, don't tell me because it comes from your rowing days and it's the old Ivy
No,
League
not at all.
network.
Yeah, no, it was because during the pandemic, every single gig that I had was wiped off. You know, I had 6 months worth of gigs just erased in one day. And I was referred to an Israeli ad agency that was looking for a funny commercial script, and I undercharged, over delivered because I had nothing going on, and they wanted one in 2 weeks. I gave them four the next day, and they loved all of them. And they were like, and my girlfriend was like, "You should start a comedy consulting company." I was like, "Yeah, we're funnier than you are." I was just like, "Ding, that's it."
Isn't
And
that great?
it,
Is your girlfriend in comedy?
not at all. She's a veterinarian. Um,
That
and
takes some humor to do that, though. That's a tough job, too.
oh, she's great at it. Yeah. But yes, and she has a lot of personality for sure. Perhaps too much, but no, I was really on fire for this idea, and I basically cold called every agency on LinkedIn and every marketing person that I could get my hands like that would listen, and ask them if they thought it was a good idea. And cold call them is like, look, I promise not to ask you for money, but I would love to run this idea by you. I've been a comic for whatever it was, 20 years at that point, and got a lot of them on the phone. And a lot of people are like, yeah, I think I can refer you to this person or that person. So within, I want to say 2 months of starting it, I had a Fortune 500 company had us on retainer, and
Wow.
we were creating writers' rooms of professional comics and giving what I referred to as a holy shit amount of great ideas for all of these marketing brand or all these brands that were under their umbrella. And then they started asking for like, okay, well, could you show us how to be funny? So I created more of a formula for it of how I could teach people these skills.
This
And
proprietary formula showing people how to be funny. How do you bring that to
um
somebody? Because there's a lot of
uh
curmudgeons. There's a lot of curmudgeons.
yeah, it's a lot of just getting people over the fear of bombing. That's the biggest thing. It's all fear. Every bit of it is fear, and right now in particular is is an especially unique time because it's the first time ever that more senior people are afraid of offending more junior people, right?
Quite
Um,
interesting.
and yeah, and so I teach them basic like unwritten comedy rules, and then how not to bomb, which is a really important part. And I teach them to tell a story where they're not the hero, and that's extremely important in the context of leadership, especially because so few like business stories end without being like, and then we kicked their ass. Like, yeah, all right, dude, yeah, you're undefeated. That's why you're a middle manager. You did
Right,
it.
right.
Um,
Yippee.
Yeah, but yeah, it's been the speaking and workshop journey has been really interesting, and it's unlocked a lot of doors for other things. So the workshops are kind of the initial way in, and then once people are in a room with me and they see how much fun they can have together, they tend to bring me back for other things like making internal education more interesting, more engaging, and punching up and shortening new hire orientations is a specialty, as well as
I think
making internal comms.
that's a needed niche. Reminds me.
Nobody knows.
Let's just call
Yeah,
it quiche, needed quiche. It's really
I call
important.
it I call it kish. So that's
Oh,
the
you call
thing.
it the quiche.
Yeah, I'd love a quish.
So
Yeah, I mean it's
what's your toughest room? Is it a corporate boardroom or is it a comedy club? Like, what's been the toughest room?
non-binaries in Brooklyn.
Really?
Oh God, just yeah. Any day. Absolutely any day.
How do you
Well,
win that
that
over? How do you win that over, my friend? How do you win that over? You got to have some maverick wisdom there.
I will not bomb in 99.9% of rooms in America. That and maybe no, I'd rather do a senior citizen center actually than 20-year-olds in Brooklyn. Don't go. That is the secret. Do not go.
Don't
Like
go.
yeah, when they ask me, I'm like, no, no, I'm not doing that. I'm
I
not.
was during COVID when I did I did some comedy from 2019 to 2024 with like real
Mhm,
football training. And I went on an armory show one time
mhm.
and I was definitely not the youngest lady there.
Did you tank? Hey.
Oh God, I was saying these girls think I'm their mama. And but do you see the difference in the humor is like a little bit more, it's not even dry. It's like from my purview, it feels somewhat down, a little bit of downtrodden. It feels
Yeah.
very
Well,
monochromatic, like, well, then my dog died and I swept it in the dishpan. Like, dude, no, I'm not laughing at that. I don't know. And on Mav's Coffee Clarity, we roast ageism. It's a multi-generational workforce. We need the young people. The young people need I'll say
right.
the older people. Everybody could be at the table. But honestly, I isn't laughing about laughing, like, ha, 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 ha.
Yeah. Well, there's a thing in like lefty well, and it's also in horseshoe theory always comes around that it's infected both sides is that they're less concerned with being funny and more concerned with being right,
Oh yeah,
right? That they want to
that's a
be
good
they want to
point.
be correct. So that's where you get all of this really weird like clapter kind of stuff. Like it's somebody will be on stage for 15 minutes and get zero laughs but five applause breaks because they said the right thing. Right. So
How do you deal with that?
uh
I don't know. That definitely feels, well, I guess, like art, it's subjective. What one man's art may not be another man or person or whatever art. But
yeah.
I feel sort of like you again, what's the toughest room? The corporate boardroom or the comedy club? Because it's definitely got a little bit of ageism in there, I think.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, to me, it's just all about being super open and inclusive and bringing people in. And 99% of the stuff that I talk to or talk about is it's either going to be myself or really broad topics, right? But that like everybody like I talk about the Bible a lot and stuff like that, like stuff that
Yes,
it
that was
might
the other thing at Gotham. You were talking about the Bible in a really kind of cool fashion. It's like this dude
yeah
knows
that
the Bible, but he's not making me feel bad that I didn't go to confession.
Right, that it's like edgy, but also um also accessible. So
Do you get pushback
when
on that? Do you ever get pushback on that? Nobody
no, I
doesn't
mean
hear hate
the
mail.
thing that I like about where I am in the comedy world is that I can do political stuff in any state. I can do religious stuff in front of any religion, and I do racial humor in front of any race, right? And like it's it walks the line because I've gone out of my way to educate myself and know people from every walk of life, right? So I'm not it's not punching down necessarily. Sometimes I may, but it's all about like, great way to put it is that a black friend of mine who's a comic said, when I do racial humor, it's like the calls coming from inside the house. I was like, that's the greatest thing anybody's told me. And that's what the thing that I really focus on when I'm doing anything in terms of like, educating a corporate audience, or if it's marketing, if it's sales, if it's any of these things, I spend a whole lot of time really getting to know who their audience is.
That's important.
And the thing that I did initially, just reflexively, that I didn't know it was like a MAVerick type thing, was that for every marketing project, I would create a writer's room that matched the target demographic.
Very
So
smart.
like, yeah, it's like,
Very
so
smart.
why do you have a room full of dudes writing tampon commercials? What are you doing?
Yeah,
Right?
no. Hard left, hard right,
Yeah.
out of the room.
Yeah, and there's the reason, like once I kind of start working with companies and people that they keep coming back, is because they do realize that there's something intrinsically valuable about getting to know your audience well enough so that you can make fun of their problem, right? There's nothing that proves your fluency in a problem, or the solution, more than being able to make fun of it, right?
I think
And
that's your key bean of the day right there. Know your audience and know them deep enough. Yeah, that's very, very powerful. Ex-
mhm,
yeah, that definitely just like hit the maverick nerve with me. I think it's really important to know who you're talking to and why and be relatable. That's exactly
right.
what you are. Totally.
No, thank you.
So
Thanks.
I do have a couple quick questions for you that, are the questions that were in the form. What is the best piece of business advice that you are glad you ignored?
Hmm. Um, I mean, somebody told me to get Office Space pretty early on. I was glad I ignored that.
You
Hmm.
could take a
Did I
hard
write?
pass.
Did I put something down on the?
No.
Okay.
What's the one life hack you swear by that no one else understands?
One life hack. Um, Guy, so put on the spot. You would think I was sharper. I'm not an improv guy. Uh, I mean, I am a big believer in cold plunging my way to happiness that a lot of people don't,
Cold
especially women.
plunge. What is that?
Yeah.
Like you're getting
I
in the
get,
tub of ice, like Lady
yeah.
Gaga?
Yeah. 40-degree water 5 times a week. That's a way to make you feel pretty good about yourself. You know you're not
I,
soft that
I
day.
I actually know that's a pretty healthy thing to do. I just don't have the courage to do it.
Yeah. It's not for the kids.
No, definitely not for the no. Okay, and funnier than you are. So, tell me about that. Right before the pandemic, you start this business, and you're
During
cold
the pandemic.
call during the pandemic, and you're cold
Yeah.
calling, and you're making ends meet. Okay, we're a year or so outside. What's happening over at Funnier Than You Are right now?
Yeah, so thank you. Right now, I'm steering much more into workshops, and I have two workshops that are the primary thing that I focus on. One is leading with levity, and that's for from managers up to executives, and that is where I bring my rowing background, and I pass along the the nuggets of wisdom that I got from Coach Bergman, who was my college coach, who also literally in about 30 seconds changed my life when I was in high school, when I met him.
What was the
Um,
30 seconds?
um, so I was like 2 weeks away from quitting,
Oh,
and he I had acquired the nickname Crash by my sophomore year, and he came by the boathouse to recruit the seniors, and he saw me and the scrubs sitting around being scrubs, and he was like, "Hey, Coxon, can I talk to you?" I was like, "Yeah, what's up?" He's like, "Why aren't you taking charge of these guys?" I was like, "Oh, yeah." I just gave some like glib answer, and he's like, "No, seriously, why aren't you taking charge?" I was like, "I don't know what I'm doing." And he goes, "Neither do they. Look them in the eye and be their general. Can you do that?" It's like, "Yes, sir." And then he introduced me to the varsity coxswain and asked that kid if he would answer all my questions. So he gave me permission to not know. And I drove that kid crazy for the next year. And 2 years later, I was racing in the world championships.
Wow, that's
Uh,
incredible. So for
yeah.
people that are listening into our coffee conversation, although I noticed you didn't have
Mhm.
coffee, that's all right.
It's a little late in the day for a
I'm
coffee.
like I'm literally on my eighth cup of coffee today. I'm not even joking. So what are we,
Hardcore.
sadly, what are we letting the audience know about Richie Redding and Funnier Than You Are as a maverick? So somebody that's listening in that's stuck at that juxtaposition, maybe in transformation, maybe something challenging. What are we doing to help them move forward? Do you have something you want to share? As we say, it's been a
Sure.
navigating kind of afternoon with you, Richie.
Yeah. So, um, you don't have to be perfect. People need people. And
I love it.
especially if you're in a leadership position, people are more interested in your obstacles than your outcomes. So they want to know the things that you overcame, not where you are right now. That's the only thing that they can see. And if you're afraid of putting your foot in your mouth and being funny, then remember, show up on time and be cool.
Show up and be
And
cool, my friends.
and it's not necessarily about being funny yourself, but levity is about making other people comfortable around you so they can be themselves.
Share the success. Well, listen, Richie Redding, where can we find you, my friend? Everybody knows you're on
Um,
LinkedIn because I said it like 3 or 4 times. So where are we finding?
yeah, follow your boy Richie Redding. It's Richie Does Comedy on Instagram and TikTok. And I post clips every week, and you can also find me on stage 5 or 6 nights a week in New York City. And I occasionally post where I'm going to be. I should be way better at that.
This is Mav at Mav's Coffee Clarity with Denise. We have spilled the beans with Richie Redding. Peace out, my friends. Richie and Denise have to get back to work. It's been an afternoon of wit, wisdom, and clarity. Find us wherever you listen to your favorite pods and on YouTube from the 413 to the 203 in New York City. Share and move forward. Thank you. Hey, that's a wrap for today, my friends. Thanks for listening, subscribing, and staying connected with me. Head on over to denisedegregoli.com and learn a little bit more about my creative and strategic consulting services. While you're there, drop your name on the contact page. Sign up for my bi-weekly brew. It's fresh ideas delivered to your inbox a couple times a month for clarity, creativity, and better communication. It's based on my 3 decades as an entrepreneur, helping other people and businesses move forward. It's great business intel and life hacks that you can use for work, life, and self-care. And come on, who doesn't need that nowadays? Have a great rest of your day. Peace out, my friends. Mav has got to get back to work.